Welcome to my world. This is Colleen Liz Frost, and it is now my time to talk. And it's so nice because it's very quiet here at night. Um, these are long days when you are a caregiver, and I am so grateful to be here with you. And it reminds me when my son was young, he was probably about 2 years old, and I gave him his first walking stick or talking stick. And I think one of the best joys in life is when you can raise your kids to learn how to communicate. And that's what we're doing here. This is the 7 days live stream with your coach, Colleen. And I am looking forward to spending these 7 days of balance, teaching you how to communicate. A balance to find a purpose in life. And such a big piece of it is the journey I've had learning how to communicate. And I was so lucky to have one little boy that is now 21, and he was my pride and joy. And it was the little lessons like my mother taught me. She grew up on an Indian reservation, right on top of it, right next to it. And she was given gifts like this in an early age. And it was how to teach respect on other people's rare voices. And rare people, places, and voices, celebrating history to learn how to create more. And that's what I love about Fridays. Tips and lessons learned, a little bit about financial. Because that in having a balance, we have to work those days in too. So I'm excited because today I'm unfrozen. I have been frozen all week, and tonight it kind of worked its way out. So Dad took me back to the front porch. He even had a whistle back in his step. Fridays are a time for lessons learned in our financial world. And today I went to the bank to warn my keeper of my funds not to panic that I'm spending money today on a new mic. I get nervous when I have to have an expenditure, and Dad helps me when he can, but I can't wait to make it on my own. I've waited a long time to show my son me as an entrepreneur. I used to be years ago, and then divorce came and cancer changed that game. And so I look forward to reaching out into this financial world. And so I'm excited about that, but I do thank my mom and dad for giving me this ability to launch lightly. The banker and her and I laughed, but she knew that I was very serious, and I think she likes clients nervous. I have no loans and no debt, but I headed home to Dad's and his steady hand and the lessons of the 7 days. And he said, honey girl, let's go and rock on our double rocking chair. And I will tell you about Ma and I. All these things take time and courage. Let this 7 days live be your traveler's rest. Each day I promote living life on purpose, with something each day to ponder in hopes to inspire you to celebrate history and create more. Today, I am your head coach, and I am on a mission, celebrating that history in hopes we all can create more. This is going to be something good, I promise. I live in Perm, Minnesota, and we have like 17 parks. I stopped counting. It was one of the very first things when I left home that day. It was the 13th. Friday the 13th, believe it or not. And as I was driving away with my 1-year-old, I thought, well, of course I'm, going back home. And but I stopped first at one of our perm parks. It was by a lake. In Minnesota, we have 10,000 artists, but there's also a rumor that we have 10,000 lakes. Now, I grew up around these lakes, but we were in the food business. So I've never really been on them. I've been lightly in them as I am an avid foot dipper, but I am not a swimmer per trade. But I I enjoy the people who love the lakes. And we do have a beautiful park here in Perm that's right on the lake. And I took my son there that day and we gathered up the rocks. We gathered up some sand lightly in a small little, I can't find it here tonight. It's someplace sacred, I'm sure. And I told him that wherever there's a park, that can be our home. And he said, "Can we take some with us, Mom?" And I said, "Of course." And so that was our first, I told him that's our very first home. And today, when Dad and I were out on the porch all day long, all week long, the city of Perm has workers that go out and take care of our parks. And I've never seen anything like it. They have been out here all week on the park across the street from my parents' home. And the grass is kept like this for us young. At the time, I was a younger mother, and there was not a bug. It was just incredible. So I just think we just really need to give it up for ourselves that we pay these taxes to supply our cities with the type of care and compassion that they have for keeping us outdoors to these parks, because that's where I choose to have gone as a single mother. They were well lit and they were beautiful and they were free. So thank you to our city workers. But one of my favorite people here in Perm, he was my person, was Jerome Bodingheimer. And he gave us the love of these parks. And he taught my son at a young age the gift of the trees and the care that's involved in the parks. So as my dad and I have been sitting here frozen in his misery with me all week, we listened to those people taking care of our parks. But last week, as we were sitting on the porch, we were noticing our neighbors and seeing the compassion that they had while playing in these parks. They picked up after themselves. They reached out to each other as they watched others' children that were by themselves in the park playing. And how lucky we are to have the gift of each other, how they were taught as a culture here to leave people, places, and things better than what we found them. And that was instilled in us in a very young age here, that no matter who left it, if we saw it, it was, our right to go over and pick it up and to leave it better than what we found it. Nothing was anyone else's fault if we saw it, to go and pick it up. And I just appreciate my dad and I talking this on the porch. And we had a very special thing on our porch tonight. We had the double rocker that Mom and him sat on. He had this delivered from storage, and he no more than sat there to tell me about my expenditure and how to deal with it. Tips and lessons learned. We're starting with his lesson of Ernest Tubb. He says, "Can you grab your phone and put on a little Ernest Tubb?" And I thought, well, where's this lesson going? He says, "Play the waltz." And so I did. I played the waltz. And here it goes. "When we dance together, my world's in disguise. It's a fairyland tale that came true. And when you looked at me with those stars in your eyes, I could waltz across Texas with you. Waltz across Texas with you in my arms. Waltz across Texas with you. Like a storybook ending, I'm lost in your charms, and I could waltz across Texas with you. My heartaches and troubles are just up and gone the moment that you came in view. And with your hand in mine, dear, I could dance on and on. I could waltz across Texas with you. Waltz across Texas with you in my arms. Waltz across Texas with you. Like a storybook ending, I could waltz across Texas with you." And it was just a few lines in, and my dad was just streaming with tears. And he just said, honey girl, let's call Chris. Carmen and Alan were out to eat. And we called up Chris towards the end of this song, and it's the steel guitar, people. It's the steel guitar. And I'm supposed to be in the middle of a lesson because it's Fridays. It's tips and lessons learned. I mean, where's this going, people? Oh, I hope you're resting. This is the Traveler's Rest. Deep breath, and let's have some water. So Chris is my twin brother. You know, my mother told me that if you can't fix something that is broken, you can always make it better. My dad has a broken heart, but he reached my hand and he said she is with us. And of course we called Chris. He told us, he said, Dad, on speaker, he says, Dad, there's a blue jay outside of my window right now. And of course, it's the bluest of blue, Dad. Remember my other video where mother's favorite color is blue? And did I mention how popular birds have been in our family? They have followed our family journey. Well, anyway, he went on and on about this blue jay with Dad. And he kind of got perked up. And Chris's next breath is, Mom is all around us, Dad. I can hear birds at your house, Dad. And Dad, this blue jay's really pestering me, so I might as well get up and get something done. That's what Mom's telling Chris. And so, of course, Dad just started laughing, and that was that. And as he listened to how Dad described this song and the steel guitar, and then here comes the famous story. He says, Chris, he said, there was no one like her. There was no one like your mother. Do you know that when I went to the VFW with your mother to dance, we no more than got up and hit the dance floor to this song, Waltz Across Texas, and everybody just stopped, and they backed away, and they watched your mother dance. And we've heard this familiar story so many times, and it just brings Dad such joy to tell it. And he just absolutely tells it like no one else I've ever heard describe it. It is just retched with love. And he holds her up in such a high pedestal. And that's what I call love more. He says, Mother is with all of us. And Chris says, and she is waiting for you, Dad, with the road of gold. No riches down here, no matter compared to the ones waiting there for you, Dad. And of course, in my mind, imagine what I'm thinking now. How silly the worry of my investment of my microphone was at that moment. Chris went on then to tell this beautiful story. Remember the little bees? How kindness is floating all around? I'm trying to remember to be kind. So now he's telling us this romantic story of his neighbor and how kind they are to each other. This is the man camp, reeking in kindness, talking about golden roads in heaven. And I'm sitting here like a worrywart, waiting for the lesson about how not to be nervous about an expenditure. And I sat back in my rocker and I'm starting to comprehend. Perhaps we should just be kind, count our blessings, and go across the street and make sure the park is cleaned up. Well, all this has absolutely changed my whole take on today, because as Chris finished his story, my dad started in with our neighbor man, Brian, and Deb. Well, then there was Norman and Judy from back in the 70s. He went on and on about them. So this went on for over an hour, people. And when it was over, what did I go back and do? We started in with the iPhone DJing. That's hooked to the Bluetooth Marshall amp stack. So there you have it. I am well cured for my worries, all my tips and lessons learned, and all I could think about was these lonely days that you think I'm having. The talking stick was passed to my dad and Chris, and I just sat back and I took it all in. And I have been laughing in my head all night about how I have no worries, because if I continue to have awesome stories like this for you, it's over. So thank you for letting me teach these 7 days of balance. And I suggest that you better hone in and start listening to your family. And this kindness lessons that I'm taking from my sister, it's working. Because even when you have a triangle, you know how dangerous triangles are? I'm learning this now again. I'm learning that when you have a triangle, you're supposed to sit back and just kind of observe what they're talking about. Because it's a dangerous thing when you're sitting with a triangle. You can start to get agitated. So I tell you, people, it's working. Talking sticks, let them talk, and you listen. And I had the best triangle conversation by listening. So there you are, my tip for you. And then when everybody's in bed now for their 2 hours, I went to my YouTube channel because I'm researching how to make this special thing for all of you. And anyway, I clicked on the side panel and there's a thing called analytics. And anyway, there's a whole bunch of charts and graphs. And since May 14th, you all have been watching my videos now for over 100.3 hours. Yes, I think that's a big deal. So I would say that today is a rock on day. Anyway, let me just say this. That is worth celebrating. And I think that Blue Jay that's talking to Chris and our birds, my dad's crying over some walls, and I'm listening. And I have content. And wait till you see the content that's coming from my podcast. It's exciting. So I think you should just enjoy these 7 days because life is a circus and it's a jungle out there. It's nice to have the rhythm of the 7 days to keep us in step and to keep us bouncing. And there is a joy into looking into our past, but not too long. There is an importance in making a list for our to-dos today, but not too long of a list. Lastly, how fun and exciting is it to dream about what's next? But don't dream too long. It's all about a balance. Living 7 days on purpose, celebrating our history, and creating more. That's what I am passionate about. That's my purpose. Do you have a neighbor? Reach out and let's all be better neighbors. Tell me your neighborhood story. Let's engage on this thing. This internet is exciting. I have been lit about the internet since I used to work for our local telephone company. And I was in charge of setting up the internet division back when I was going to be a big hitter. And guess how many customers we had in rural Minnesota at that time? This was over 35 years ago. We had 15. So I'm excited to see how passionate little kids are. And I just think that if they had a little direction on balance, that we might be able to enjoy our life, even though it's pretty intense with this internet. So I hope to do my part in helping, but I also hope to do my part in building a digital home. Thank you for your time tonight. Find your rocks, grab your ball, and build a team. Look for a feather. Hope is all around. So jump, bounce, and fly with me. 7 days on purpose. I teach it, preach it, and repeat it with a balance. Like, share, and remember that Fridays are for those who dare. Be avant-garde, be rare, and remember me. Sincerely, your coach, Colleen, number 33.